Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Louis D'Souza, and this is your daily dose of happy. We're so happy you decided to join us today. And we are continuing our explorations of the law of attraction and conscious creation and all those good things here on LOA Today. And we're welcoming people who are listening to local cable access as well as PRN and YouTube and all the good places that people listen to us. Thank you very much for tuning in. And among those people, Louis, we actually have somebody who sent in a question for us to address, which I know we love to do. We love talking about things that people bring up. This is from Avinash, who has written in before. He actually got some help from the Stream of David and from Daniel Mangana, but this time he asked specifically for you because it says, I love the way that Louis explained the law of attraction basics, and I was wondering if both of you can discuss about financial abundance basics the next time Louis is on. So we have a special request for you today. You want to try taking a stab at the basics of financial abundance?
Well, the first thing people need to understand about abundance when it comes to financial is you don't want the money. You want what the money can maybe get you, but ultimately you want to be happy. And the money doesn't always buy you love and happiness.
Yeah, there's an old song.
Money can buy me love. So you really need to understand what you're asking for. And just to focus on money is not what I advise, because you really want to focus on being in that happy place, being in that place where you really feel good, and then abundance in all shapes and forms will come to you, including financial. So financial abundance is one where you really feel the lack of lack. So you're really not worried about not having money tomorrow. You're really feeling the fact that the universe has got your back. You really understand what faith is all about, which is understanding that the universe has got your back if you focus on what you want. So a lot of people say, I want money, but I don't have enough. And they're spending a lot more time focusing on I don't have enough than they are focusing on the feeling of absolutely knowing that, whatever you need tomorrow, whatever you want, whatever is in your design is going to be coming forth, and you just trust, and that's the way it is. And it's a very different vibration. When you're in the vibration of knowing what you don't want, you're very, very, very far away from being in the vibrational vicinity of what you do. So when you're looking at financial abundance, it's a very, very positive and clear message you're putting out to the universe. So I was speaking to somebody in London yesterday, because I went to the Speaker's Corner again, and we're really discussing that whole idea of when you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want. And it was fascinating how they hadn't really looked at it like that before. These were very intelligent, clear individuals who had never really broken down life into that design or that understanding of the contrast of when you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want. So the important thing I like pointing out to people is I always knew when I was young and searching for life, truth, and life in the universe and everything, is that the contrast was a big teacher. I knew that without light there'd be no darkness, or without darkness there'd be no light, and if there was no valley there'd be no mountain, etc. If there's no up there'd be no down. So you really knew that was a very important aspect of understanding of the law of attraction. And to really get that as a human, you need to understand it's all about wanted and unwanted. That was something that was given to me by Abram, and it was a very profound clarity of knowing that, the contrast is, for many years, for about 40 years of my life, I didn't understand what this contrast was in a human. So when I'm saying it was a profound understanding, It was really, it got to me to my core when somebody said, "Oh, the contrast in a human is wanted and unwanted." And I'm like, "What? That's simple."
Yeah, right.
and it was like, oh my gosh, yes. And when you start working with it, you start realizing that even when you watch your thoughts, I don't know if you've ever done this, Walt, when you sit down, you watch your thoughts are actually going to unwanted and wanted, unwanted and wanted, unwanted and wanted. And then, of course, that manifests physically as well. So you start realizing that your thoughts really much, very much create your reality. And once you understand that, the guys were saying, I really hate that. It's a very political down at Speaker's Corner.
They're political everywhere around the world these days, but so why not the Speaker's Corner?
Sir
And by the way,
Tony.
we should clarify what the Speaker's Corner is because a lot of listeners might
Oh,
not know.
okay. Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to do that?
Well, actually, I can't say a whole lot about it. From what I understand, it's a location in London where people get together on Sundays, I think, and they discuss everything that you could possibly discuss philosophically oriented. And there are some regulars there who really, really know their stuff, and others who come trying to ask questions or challenge them or whatever. And you decide you're going to have a good time and go be a challenger, which I applaud you for. I think that's wonderful.
Well, yeah, Speaker's Corner is one of the few places on the planet, actually, from what I understand, that you can go and say your piece, no matter what it is, with pretty much a very high level of immunity. So, you get the Christians bashing the Muslims, and you get the Muslims openly bashing the Christians, and it's as long as there's no physical blows and it's just verbal, everybody's pretty much okay with whatever goes on
So there's a heavy religion thing going on there. Christian and Muslim seems to be the
it
dominant
is
theme.
very, very, very much a Christian Muslim debate. And whenever I come there, nobody really knows what to talk to me about initially, because that is it's either political or it's religious, and I go there and don't speak either. So I say I'm so bored of hearing that same story about what the Muslims attack the Christians about and what the Christians attack the Muslims about. I had no interest in discussing that at all. It's like, really, how boring can you get? That has been so talked about forever. And this guy really wanted the abundance of whites being able to have their say and have their lives, and not being told what to think and what to say. And it was very, very important for this individual to get to that place, because he was saying about 80% of London is non-white, is non-English, shall we say. So and he was talking about Tokyo, which he said was 90% Japanese, which is like a great contrast to
yeah,
London.
very big. No kidding.
And he was wanting to kind of get London back into the hands of the British, and I was saying, no, that's never going to happen. You can dream all you want, but it's not where we're going. Actually, the planet, and the way I see it, is a race of Pan is coming. There's going to be a mixed race that is going to be predominant, and it's, to me, what I like about that is it's bringing the whole planet into a point of looking at everybody as human, and not trying to segregate them, you're this, you're that, and you're the other, which I feel in the long run is beneficial, because I'm very much for a holistic viewpoint rather than too much of an individualistic one. Now, if you want to keep your individualistic aspects, I'm all for it. I've got absolutely no problem. And the interesting thing was that I bolstered all of these different individuals that I was speaking to about their own belief structure, and I helped them understand it with a bit more clarity, and made sure that they understand that what they were doing was okay. Because there is no real wrong, because any individual, as you kind of work out after a while, any individual, wherever they are at any moment in time, is a culmination of all their previous experiences, and that has caused them to come to their belief structure. and that needs to be respected. So,
Yeah.
I have a huge amount of respect for anybody's belief structure, and I can just all I'm doing is helping them clarify their belief structure in the understanding of bringing in a little bit of LOA and emotional guidance. And when you do that, you can help anybody improve their own belief structure and their own desire and their own understandings and their own manifestations of what they want. Like this individual who wrote in wants to manifest more financial abundance. And the most important thing that somebody who's really worried about financial abundance is you need to get off that topic. You need to
No,
start thinking about that beautiful cat which you like stroking, and or
absolutely.
or the swimming, or have a bath, or have a good read of a book or something. Get off the subject. Now, if
Uh,
you're just a little bit worried about it and you just want to increase your finances a bit, then you can then you're not so much in a negative place. Then you can start looking at, wouldn't it be nice if
mhm.
a bit more money came in from different angles? A lot of people say, oh, but my company only has so much money, and there's only so much money in the pie. And once you've had your slice and everybody's had their slice, there's no money left in it. But a lot of people don't understand that there are millions of different pies out there. You don't have to get them all from the same pie. The universal law of attraction can find pies all over the place to bring financial abundance and any other abundance to you, especially relationships as well. A lot of people think that they have to go out and find this good person and trawl through thousands of profiles on Tinder and things like that, instead of just focusing with the law of attraction, getting the law of attraction to find the right person. Then when you open Tinder, it's the first person on
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true. And I especially love what you were saying before about how the reason people want to understand and learn to apply the principles in order to attract more financial abundance is because they believe deep down that they lack financial abundance, and that really is an important concept. I mean,
there.
it's easy to skip over it.
Absolutely.
That's why I wanted to go back to it,
Mm-hmm.
because the concept of lack, that you mentioned earlier about how Abraham really explained it nicely, and they explain it beautifully. Abraham was also the one that made clear to me why the concept of lack is so important. And the example that they give is what they call the two-ended stick. That every subject is basically two subjects on the same stick. At one end is the thing, and at the other end is the lack of the thing. And when you start looking at it that way, then you begin to realize, at least this is what I found, I began to realize that what I used to think of as opposites weren't really opposites. The
Mm-hmm.
opposites are thing and lack of thing, not black and white or up and down or whatever. It's thing and lack and thing that are opposites. When I think
Mm-hmm.
about it that way, now all of a sudden the whole concept of negation, yes and no, and what that means in our daily communication, in our use of language. Now I understand why it was that certain people were saying to me, well, you can't ask for something in terms of saying, I don't want this and expect to get what you're looking for, because what you're going to get is more of the thing you don't want. I said, well, wait a minute. What does that mean? I don't understand that. How could that possibly be? But when they explained the two-ended stick, the thing end and the lack end, now it started to make sense, because, of course, the no end of the thing is the lack end. So every time
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about no, you're talking about the lack end. Oh, well, why didn't they say that the first time? That's the way I felt anyway, the first time I heard that. But
Well, that's
I'll
such an
clarify
important
that.
point. And I was bringing it up in Speaker's Corner as well. Somebody was talking about a subject and only looking at the negative side of it. And I said, well, first thing I said to them, you do know that every subject's two subjects. Huh?
Troublemaker, you.
No. And then I took the same subject and I pointed their point of view out. And then I said, well, wouldn't it be nice if this point of view was also looked at? And when I started pointing that out, they were like, oh. I said, you're now very, very clear about what you don't want, but you haven't turned around and gone to what you do want. You haven't looked at that yet. And I like always bringing in health as a subject. Well, actually, let's bring in competition just to point out every subject's two subjects.
Okay.
So for competition, now some people look at competition. Well, my daughter's school. Nobody can be first. Nobody must be praised if they win, and all the rest of it. And I'm
Sure.
like going, oh. No, please. So they're looking at the subject of competition as if somebody wins, somebody loses, and poor loser, and can't focus on that, and you can't got to protect them and all the rest of it. Or you could look at competition as, oh, I'm improving myself, I'm getting better every day, and I'm really enjoying competing against myself, and I want to become the best I can. And when you're looking at competition from that point of view, it's a far more wholesome and healthy viewpoint. And
it's much healthier.
It is so much healthier, and your emotional guidance says to you it feels better.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. Meaning when we say your emotional guidance system feels better, what we mean is it just feels better. That's what the emotional guidance system is. It's what you're feeling. And it does. It just feels better.
The way I like pointing out the emotional guidance is when you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want. So you have this vortex, which let's just say a bank or a vortex or a collection of what you want, non-physical in vibration, and it's sitting there spinning round. And when you feel good, you're heading towards that. When you feel bad, you're heading away from it. And it's like playing that hot and cold game when you're a kid. You hide something in your room, and your parents come in and you say, "Oh, you're getting hotter, you're getting colder," as they're getting closer or further away from the item. And that's exactly what your emotional guidance is doing. When you're feeling positive emotion, you're getting closer to what you want, and when you're feeling negative emotion, you're getting further away. So it's a very good guidance system to use with your thoughts. You're sitting there in bed and, oh, that really feels bad. Oh, my higher self is saying to me, you're heading away from what you want. I would change that thinking, turn around, go the other way.
By the way, it occurs to me that we have a lot of new listeners tuned in, and our references to Abraham might have gone off the rails because we made a reference to Christians and Muslims, so they're thinking Abraham from the Christian Bible. We should really clarify what we mean by Abraham. It's not Abraham from the Christian Bible. It's an entirely different Abraham.
This is somebody who gives some good advice.
That's right, yes.
And if they link to Abraham or not, that's another story.
Yeah, we won't even try that one. But yeah, I could see where people might get confused about that, so I thought I'd throw that in there. But the Abraham we're talking about is actually a name adopted by Esther Hicks, who channels a group of spiritual entities that collectively call themselves Abraham. So that's where the name Abraham comes from. But if that's a little bit too freaky for you, just don't worry about it. Just think of Abraham as, like Louis said, a good source of information, and just leave it at that.
Yeah. So, Jeffrey, yes, I'm having great autumn day. I'm really enjoying those leaves. Comment to one of the guys who often is on here.
Yep, Jeffrey's one of our regulars. And Jenny's also commenting that she's having beautiful weather in North Carolina, which is part of the country my sister lives in. So hello, Jenny. Hope you're doing well.
Because I was in Hyde Park in London on Sunday, I was really appreciating those autumn leaves. Just gorgeous in Hyde Park. It's beautiful. It's the biggest park in London, and it's just gorgeous.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's really good.
The thing about Speaker's Corner was there were more policemen than anybody else there.
Oh, really?
There were about 100 or 200 there, and there was Sir Tony Robinson who came there. And of course, for COVID and all the rest of it, they were trying to keep us separated.
Right.
And all the rest of it. And, I almost got a ticket or fined or put in jail a few times.
Oh, okay. I noticed that you said almost. That tells me you were in a high vibe place, so that it was just kind of.
Oh, absolutely. I was in the vibe that would never happen. So, that was a non-entity for me. But the guys that I was with were concerned about it. These guys really will give you a ticket and send you to jail. They will. I know they will. It's like, okay. Not my thoughts, but you can have those thoughts.
Tell you what, you keep those and I'll keep mine. How about that? It's just fair trade, right?
They were actually very reasonable, the police, and dealt with it very fairly. They attacked the outside of the circle first, and please move away or we will. And then they slowly moved in, and they kept a very tight rein on everything. But yeah, no, I have to commend the Met Police for the way they handled it.
Okay, that's good. So let's go back to Avinash's question again. because it's a good question and it's a good topic that he brought up. I love the way you answered the question. He wanted to know, what about the basics of financial abundance? And those are certainly the basics. I think you said them beautifully. Funny thing is, we still get tripped up on it. So I think financial abundance needs to have a little more attention. And
you need to massage it a bit.
Just a bit, yeah, just a tad. No, nothing major. No major tune-ups here. Just a little bit more explanation, because having
So
been
let's
in,
play. Yeah, no, continue. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, having been in non-financial abundance, I'm appreciative of where that question comes from, and it's not a pleasant place to be. I didn't realize at the time that I was the cause of being in that place. I had kind of a hint of it because I had just been fairly recently exposed to the concepts of law of attraction, but I didn't really have any clue how to get out of it. And
so who are you blaming? I'm curious, Walt.
who was I blaming? Oh, I was blaming the financial crisis of 2008. I was blaming the banks. I was blaming the financial monetary system. I was blaming everybody I could think of, because the government, oh yeah, the economists, you name it. I was blaming them all because I had lost all of my business to the financial crisis. I had a website design and development and hosting business, and 95% of my customers were very small nonprofits, all of whom got wiped out. So my business got wiped out. I was pretty upset. I was pretty darn upset. And I had been pointing a finger at the whole thing long before the thing actually hit. I mean, I was anticipating a year and a half in advance.
You're manifesting it.
I was great at it, let me tell you. Talk about attracting lack. I was a champion at attracting lack. But it's a very uncomfortable place to be. It's a very unhappy place to be. And I appreciate that because I've been there. So that's why I want to spend a little more time kind of touching on why this is, I think, an important concept and an important topic. Because I think a lot of people, particularly these days, are in that. I mean, there are a lot of things we could be pointing to today. There's an economy that crashed. It's trying to come back, but now there's more lockdowns happen, so there's a threat for more crash. People have lost jobs. In many cases, they've lost jobs that they've had for years that they are pretty sure are not going to come back. So there's like a long list of things you can point fingers to. It's very, very much like 2008 in that sense. So
yeah,
let's talk about that bit. It's all Corona's fault. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And viruses.
And people are saying, well, why are you chuckling like that? That's not funny. These are people's lives that we're dealing with.
Of course. I find it funny because I don't see how it helps to blame a virus.
Yeah, there is that.
It's not going to help. You can blame them all you want. So when you're looking at financial abundance, well, there is something which is called the path of least resistance, as you well know. But for the listeners, the path of least resistance might look like this. You've got a job, but you hate your boss violently. All right. And you've got a choice of leaving the job and not being able to pay your mortgage or your rent, or you stick it out and you get your rent paid and you suffer the boss. So the question you often need to ask yourself to build yourself up the emotional guidance scale to achieve a greater abundance in your life on every level, because that's the basics. The basics will cover every level, including relationships, financial, etc. So in that scenario, you'd say you'd go inside and you'd look at your emotional guidance and you'd say, which one of these feels a little easier to do than the other one? If leaving the job because that boss is just too terrible, then leave the job. And if it's based around, you just really want to pay another month's rent, etc., then you stay. So following the path of least resistance gets you to one step further to the path of allowing. So when you do the path of least resistance, path of least resistance, path of least resistance, and eventually you get up to the path of most allowing. And that is when, in the beginning, you're getting rid of resistance so that you're rolling a ball up the hill, and then it gets onto the flat where you don't really care that much, and you're just going with the flow, and then hope kicks in and it starts a little bit of a downgrade, and then you get expectation, which becomes exciting, and that ball rolls a bit faster. And of course, what I'm talking about here is different on different subjects. That's the important thing to understand about the path of least resistance. The path, your thoughts about your beautiful cat, which you enjoy stroking and purring on your lap, is not the same thoughts you have about your boss. That's just
Not even close.
so you must understand that you've got different balls in your or different vibrations running in your life, and they coalesce and clash with each other and all the rest of it. But you can lean on the ones that are the part of least resistance, or most allowing, or most enjoyable, or most fun, to once you get into that place of feeling happy, you can look back at your boss problem and your rent problem with such a better, more balanced viewpoint, and decisions made when you're in a happy place. As we know, Walt, are far more successful, if not almost very good, compared to ones that are made when you're frustrated or angry.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it makes a big difference. Let's talk a little bit more, though, about that path of least resistance, because it's a great phrase, but it was one of those things that I found pretty early on was nice in theory, not so easy in practice, because I didn't really know what to do with it in practice. And I mean, for you and me right now, where we are in our development, it seems like, second nature. So why would you have to explain
Clear,
that?
black and white, yeah.
Yeah, but when you're still trying to learn this stuff, that can be pretty confusing. So what is the path of least resistance? How do you know that you're on it?
So there's two words which we want to bring up here, which are very important. Is if you feel in yourself any of these two, then you're heading in the right direction, and they're relief and release. I feel a little bit of release, and if you've chosen the right one between your boss and your rent, you will be feeling the relief and release.
But I'm going to interrupt you because we're getting a little bit of problem with your mic, so I'm going to clarify what you were saying. You were saying relief and release, and you're absolutely right. Those are the key concepts: relief and release. But go ahead, continue with what you were saying. I just wanted to make sure that came through clearly.
Yeah, sure. So it's important for you to be aware, and you will see in any spiritual path, any enlightenment, any growth, any increase in getting what you want. It's all about awareness. Now, Louis is famous for saying, I'm famous for saying, that you really need to understand the rules to the game of life. And what they're asking here and what we're talking about is very much the rules to the game of life. Understand that your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts are amplified by the law of attraction. When you feel relief and release, you're heading towards where you want to go. When you feel more frustration or anger, you're heading away from it. So it's important for people to really grasp that idea that they've come into this world, and it's good to read the manual to understand the rules. It's like buying Monopoly, Walt, and it's got no rules, and you and I sit down and we start fumbling around the board. It's not going to be a very pleasant Monopoly game, is it?
Well, I was pretty upset when I found out that I was upset when somebody else told me they had the rules. I said, I never got the rules. Where did you get the rules? I was pretty mad at that point.
But once you've got the rules, you know how to buy the properties, you know how to get what you want, you know how to, get the cars and get out of jail free cards. And that's what the law of attraction is in my mind. It's to get out of jail free cards.
Okay. There's some truth to that, actually.
It really is. It's got me out of jail so many times. You have no idea.
And the reason that's true, this is a bit of a side tangent, but the reason it's true is you can actually flip your experience around on a dime and get something completely different going pretty quickly. And that's why it ends up being like a get out of jail free card. But we'll leave that tangent for the moment. I just wanted to throw that in there.
So, really understand it. And it really is simple. Walt, I can teach the law of attraction within 10 minutes. Now, to fully grasp it, people will come to you with scenarios. So that's what I like when somebody says, okay, I'm in this scenario. How do I use your philosophy to get out of that scenario into another scenario, one that I want? And another thing that I feel is very important for everybody to understand, it's such a basic thing, and it makes logical sense when somebody says it, but if you've never really heard it before and you haven't integrated it in your life, it's quite profound. And it's very simply this: if a human wants something and gets it, it's the most satisfying thing in a human's life. If a human wants something and doesn't get it, it's the most unsatisfying thing in a human's life. And once you start looking at life that way, you start realizing, oh, really, what I'm trying to do in this life is get what I want. That could be love, it could be truth, it could be harmony, it could be a partner, it could be money, it could be a car. So it can be anything. It doesn't have to be not spiritual just because it's something you want. But it's important for you to understand that basic principle. So you are trying to get and manifest what you want. That is what you're trying to do in this life. And that is going to make you the happiest you're going to be. So you start realizing that I better become a good manifester. How do I do that? Understand the law of attraction. Understand that you need to focus on something for 14 seconds or more for the universal law of attraction to give it
I believe it gives it enough attention to draw in at least one more thought along the same lines.
to basically amplify it. That's the word I was looking for. So,
Right, to amplify.
14 seconds of focus on one subject is not easy. If
Especially if you're
somebody
not used
thinks
to
the law of
doing it.
attraction is exactly,
I mean,
you're so used to focusing what you don't want for more than 14 seconds, you're quite good at that.
yeah, right. When you get up
And
to a minute or two, not only have you made a lot of progress, but you're noticing by that time, you're noticing a lot of stuff is happening differently. But it can take a while because we're so used to having our attention distracted every 2 or 3 seconds. So 14 seconds seems lengthy. A minute seems like an eternity. An hour seems incredible. But that's the way it feels at first until you actually start practicing it. And this all, by the way, does tie in to the answer to the question we were asking earlier. What is path of least resistance? Well, path of least resistance, like Louis started to describe, is where you're feeling relief and release. And how do you feel that? Well, like he described, you focus on stuff that you prefer because it feels better. When it feels better, you relieve yourself. You release stuff, and that is the path of least resistance. I mean, it says so in the phrase, right? Path of least resistance, and you relieve and release resistance. That's what you're relieving and releasing. You're getting rid of that resistance. Why? Because you're focusing on what you like. It seems so simple, but it seems amazing that we kind of forget that. Like, all we have to do in order to have less resistance is focus on what we like. Like, really?
And
That's it?
what I like pointing out, Well, I like pointing out that the biggest thing that the law of attraction gave me as quite a mental individual is it gave me relief and release from mental activity. It gave me
Yeah.
so much peace. And it came from simply just me focusing more on what I want. And that alone can give you so much peace, inner peace, that real stuff that people are already looking for, that real inner peace. And it can allow you to sleep better, talk better, live better, focus better, everything. It's just gorgeous once you start not having your mind attack you all the time.
And I remember too, I remember the first times that I started to at least testingly attempt to focus more attention on what felt better. And to my astonishment and disappointment, from my position of feeling depressed and angry and frustrated, focusing on it for just a moment didn't do anything. It didn't feel any better right away. And if I tried it 2 or 3 times, it still didn't feel any better. In fact, that's where I began to notice I wasn't really feeling much of anything. And now I was feeling cheated on top of everything else. So I point this out to say, if this is not something you've tried before, don't get discouraged just because you don't get that immediate feeling. You don't get that immediate payback. That comes over time. The more that you do this kind of thing, it actually becomes second nature. And yes, you do get pretty quick feedback that makes you feel good. But initially, yeah, it can take a while before that starts to happen. And that's good. Because that sounds like a strange thing to say. Why would that be good? Well, it's good because you're finally starting to change an old pattern that has continued to just make your life miserable. It does take time. It takes some work to do that, but it's really worthwhile because when you do that work, and it's such simple work, it's literally just looking
It
for
really
stuff that you
isn't
like.
complicated. It
No,
actually becomes so easy, you wonder how you never understood it in the beginning.
eventually that's exactly where it gets to. But the good
And
news is, if just by doing it for a while, even though you're not getting the results, just doing it anyway every single day, over
I remember
time you start to
both
notice.
you and I, Wolf, both you and I were saying at one stage, I can't believe how negative our minds are.
Oh
In the
God,
beginning,
yes.
it was such a shock to realize that you are really quite a negative individual.
Well, you know what did it for me was noticing. I remember watching The Secret, the movie, right? And they said something about how you need to, every time you find yourself thinking a negative thought, you need to switch over to a positive thought. And I recognized really quickly that there were a ton of negative thoughts going through my mind every day that I, quote, had no control over, unquote.
And even what they were saying is that's not easy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, it's quite a thing when you're faced with this stuff for the first time. It just is. Fortunately, it changes. That's the good news.
Yeah, I love these questions. So if anybody's got any other ones there.
So far, we've got just more reinforcing of what we're talking about because we have great live streamers who really know the subject pretty well, which is great. It's like having our own little cheering section. But I think we can continue a little bit on our own here, though. This idea of relieving and releasing through just refocusing our attention to stuff that we like, even though it doesn't seem to show results immediately, if we can just trust from hearing that Walt and Louis did it and others, oh God, millions of people have done the same thing with success. Just trusting that it can be done. And then giving it, most people like to say 30-day trials for various things. 30 days is a good round number. The only problem with 30-day programs isn't that they don't work, because they do. The problem with 30-day programs is that people stop after day 2. That's the only thing that kills them. So if you can find some way to get yourself to spend 30 days spending a minute a day, every single day, without fail, finding something to switch your attention to that you prefer instead, you do get better after 30 days. After 30 days, you notice the difference. The only thing that's going to stop you is giving up after day 1. That's it. There is nothing else that stops 30-day programs. Have you ever run into anything to stop the 30-day program besides giving up?
Well, I keep on thinking because I've been in a gym for many, many years, and you watch the huge surgeons in January and in February goes back to normal again. You know, it's such a prime example of of oh, let's go out and do something, and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
It's, you know, things that are worthwhile in life are worth putting a bit of effort in, and really there's so little effort involved with the law of attraction, because the effort actually is done by the law of attraction. It's not done by you. You're just doing the focusing. You're just putting out the thoughts about what you want, and you're just focusing on that for a while. And then the universal law of attraction, with its own power, is amplifying that. And it's good to understand that you've got the leverage of the power of the law of attraction at your disposal when you understand the rules of the game.
Yeah, you're basically just learning to get out of your own way, because your own way, that means that you're continuing the old pattern of focusing on all the stuff that you don't want. That's getting in your own way. You're learning how to get out of your own way. That's it. So you're right. There's not a whole lot of work involved. It's just you have to kind of do it. That's all. You have to commit to it. And like you say, the universal forces, and by the way, universal forces include people around you, events, experiences, all the stuff that goes on in your life. That's where they're all happening. And that's where all the leverage comes in, because you don't have to go control all that stuff. That's another big concept. We don't actually have to go take action steps in order to control everything in order to make stuff happen. Not that action steps are bad. Don't get me wrong. Action steps are very good, but you have to do them the right way. What we usually tend to do when we don't understand how the law of attraction works, how conscious creativity works, is we think we have to effort it out. You have to go work really, really hard in order to make things happen. You have to put in long hours. You have to, put the nose to the grindstone. You have to do all of these things, but you really don't, which is that was one of the things that was probably the hardest for me to let go of. It took me a long time before I finally recognized it. And I recognized it the hardest way of all. And that was by getting miserable results by pursuing that approach. And I did it for many years.
Walter, after you're honest, you sit back and you look at your life and your thoughts, you can very much say thought, manifestation, thought, manifestation, thought, manifestation. You can really see the correlation between and I like to use the word belief because a belief is a thought you thought often.
Mm-hmm.
So, what you see is your belief manifesting, and it's as simple as changing your belief, changing your thoughts. And you do have control of your next thought. You can choose your next thought. An interesting concept.
Well, that was actually a shock. The thing that shocked me more wasn't so much that I could pick my next thought, it's that I could pick my next emotional response. That one really surprised me. And I've said that before here on the podcast. It is affected by your thoughts. But I had always thought that it was affected by my experiences. So I thought my experiences drove my emotions. And I believed that for the first 50 years of my life. It was a stunning shock when I found out I actually could move my emotions without depending on an external experience to do it. When I did experience it, honestly, my first reaction was to doubt it because I had so much experience trying to do it the other way that it couldn't be true. That could not possibly be true. But fortunately, I stuck with it a little bit more and said, I actually moved that emotion, didn't I? I mean, and I don't remember what the exact scenario was. I think what it was probably on one of my nature walks, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but I probably focused on something at a particular point in time when I was feeling miserable. I focused on a flower or something like that. And in the process of focusing on the flower, I decided I was going to feel better. And I did. It was that simple thing. And better was not like from feeling depressed to feeling joy. It was feeling like a little tiny bit better.
Yeah.
But that was the miracle because I didn't think I could do that much. I mean, there's the old joke about the 98-pound weakling at the beach, right, at Muscle Beach. But I wasn't even, at least the 98-pound weakling could pick up something. I couldn't pick up anything. I literally, I mean, the dumbbells were sitting on the beach and they were immovable as far as I was concerned. That's how weak I felt when it came to being able to choose selectively, consciously, what my emotional response to a situation was going to be. And when I did it just a little bit, it was like, oh my God, I actually did that. That's going to sound strange to a lot of people, but that's the way it was for me.
Walter, I have an interesting experience when I was in boarding school. There was 5 bedrooms, 5 beds in a bedroom, and I had the one on the corner on the wall, and there was the big guy, there was the little guy, and the other guy there, and the little guy was always, creeping up the proverbial with the big guy. So the little guy wanted my bed. And the big guy said to me, okay, Louis, if you can lift up this weight. It was a broomstick with, this is my, really showing my background here. It was a broomstick with 2 paintings on each end with cement in them. That was the weight.
Okay.
And he said, Louis, if you can pick this weight up above your head with one hand, then you can stay in that bed. And, I knew he would just force me out. He was a brute of a guy. And I thought, what have I got to lose? Let me try. And I just put all my willpower in. I'm getting this up. And first time, an even keel just went up into the ceiling, and it was up. And everybody was like absolutely gobsmacked, as they say in the UK, surprised, jaw open. And they were calling everybody in the whole floor to come have a look what Louis can do. And the thing that just blew me away is I did it. I actually have done it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And
the
it
way it
was this
feels.
focus on, I'm going to get it up. And because of that clarity of focus, I manifested, because it was a tough situation for me at the time as a 14-year-old boy. And I just knew I just had to do this. Otherwise, it would be a long and hard fight in that place. And I didn't even think about it too much. I just said, I'm getting it up. I went, picked it up, took it above my head. And it's heavy. I
I'm
don't think
sure
I
it
ever did it
was.
again after that day.
Yeah, right. You didn't say I had to do it twice.
No, I did it 3 or 4 times on
Did
the
you
day.
really? Wow.
Yeah, but I think the next days when I tried, I couldn't do it because that's when the doubt kicks in. So you've got this belief where my
Yes.
child's under the car and I can just lift this car up, get my child out. But if you try to do it the next day, it's like you don't have that level of belief. But once you start understanding that these things are possible, you start understanding that the only limit is your belief.
Which brings in the concepts of clarity and certainty. And that's what you were experiencing that day. That's what I was
Mm,
experiencing the day that I managed to actually move my emotions without the help of an external force. Clarity and certainty, just for, even if it's only for just one brief moment in time, just being certain for that moment of time, that's all it takes.
mhm,
And if you don't have it 10 minutes from now, no big deal. At least you have it for that one moment. That moment of
mhm,
certainty is what carries things through. And again, that seems kind of strange. Why should certainty make such a difference? Why should clarity make such a difference? But as it turns out, and Abraham Hicks, who is the teacher of this stuff, points it out very clearly. The word clarity is at the top of the emotional guidance scale. It is a high vibration state.
mm.
So that's why clarity
And
is
I've
so
always said
important.
to you right from the beginning, Walt, that that's been my real focus is clarity. And it really has helped in every area of your life. When you've got great clarity, and you get great clarity through great focus, and you need good senses and clear senses and focused senses, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your touch, your smell, and your hearing. You need good senses as well to help you out. So it's there's a lot to clarity. It's all about tuning into a station, but you want the station to be clear. You don't want it to be fuzzy.
Yep, that's certainly part of it. I think also with clarity comes confidence. The more
Huge
clear,
confidence.
the more clear we are about something, the more confident we are about it. The things that we're not confident about are things we feel kind of gray, cloudy-ish about, like there's a fog
Mm.
around it. Um, it feels like a fog anyway, and I suppose for those who are more visually oriented than I am, it probably looks like a cloud too. Um, I my best sense is my sense of hearing. I can't tell you that I know what a cloud sounds like, but I know it when I feel it, and that's where I
Mm.
normally notice. I notice it in my feeling. But that's what lack of clarity is. It's a cloud. It's this foggy, doubtful, not really sure of yourself place, and it's not very pleasant. But the clarity area, when you can work your way up to that area, well, first of all, that's where everything happens. That's where all the good stuff happens. That's where you're able to start manifesting what you want on a regular basis. But clarity is also where you, or at least where I learned the difference between the fact that on the one, whoops, I got a sneeze coming up. On the one hand, I've got a whole bunch of things that I have manifested in my life, and by the way, that's literally everything in my life. I've manifested everything that's in my life, most of which I didn't like, most of which I
Mm.
didn't want, and coming to terms with that, that's the kind of clarity that I got early on. That was one of the first forms of clarity, was recognizing
Mm.
that I had manifested all this stuff I didn't want.
And
And
that you had a lot of negative thoughts, and there's
and that
great
the two
clarity
go
in understanding
they go
that.
together.
Mm.
Yeah. That's how it happened. I had a long history of spending, it isn't so much negative. I like to avoid the words negative and positive because I think they get a little bit confusing. For me, it's preferred and not preferred, liked and not liked. I had a long history of focusing my attention on stuff I don't like.
Mm.
And there are an awful lot of people who spend a whole lot of time in their lives focusing their attention on stuff they don't like. In fact, they'll rant and rave about it. They'll do podcasts about it. They'll get on TV and they'll go on and on about it. They'll do shows about it. They'll create movies about it. They'll create video games about it. They'll create endless amounts of stuff about things they don't like. Have you ever noticed that? That's just bizarre, but it's the way people behave.
You know what I rave about is negativity. Because I don't look at it as negativity, I look at it as expansion points. And yay! I'm feeling negative. There's an expansion point here. Isn't that cool? What are we going to expand to today? Oh, I know what I don't want, but now what do I want? Okay, let me look at it. This is exciting.
Which is what makes it an expansion point, by the way.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you start the whole idea of negativity now vanishes, and you get to an Abraham Hicks step 5, which I'll let you go look up yourself. Those who are determined and focused individuals will be able to go find out what step 5 is. But you really start looking at negativity as expansion points, and it is exactly what it is for me now. It is nothing other than that. I don't look at it as negative anymore. It doesn't exist to me. And it's exciting when I feel that negative emotion, Walt. I know there's an expansion point coming. I know if somebody rubs me up the wrong way, I know they're my teacher. It's just so exciting. How many people is Donald Trump teaching? Or any of the other millions of people on the planet? He's just a prime example at the moment.
But it's an interesting point you're raising, because this whole idea of getting excited about an expansion point based on something that's negative, that's not the way we normally think of negativity, is it?
No, that's precisely the point. Because you're now redefining negativity. You're now putting it really in a fairly positive context. You're understanding the dynamics of it, and you're now able to use it to your advantage and not be so scared of it anymore. Consequently, you don't spend so much time in it anymore. Consequently, you are higher up on the emotional guidance scale, which, just for reference point, could be depression, revenge. These are going up higher each time. Rage, anger, frustration, don't care, hope, first positive one, and expectation, etc., all the way up to clarity.
Yeah, there are quite a few steps. 22, I believe, in the original Abraham scale, although Abraham themselves admit that it's going to be a little bit different for everybody because everybody thinks of all those different words differently. But the point is that for every emotion that we can name, we know which one feels a little bit worse. We know which one feels a little bit better. And that's all that really counts. In fact, I'll be honest, I actually got confused about trying to apply this whole emotional guidance scale early on, because I thought I had to actually label each emotion as I was going along. Well, let's see, what am I really feeling here? Is that like anger? Is that frustration? Is that irritation? What is it I'm feeling? And it gave me a headache. I mean, there were so many different things going on in my life that I had to try to apply this to, and I just started going nuts with it. And then I finally realized I don't have to label them. I just have to know whether it feels better or does it feel worse. That's it. I don't have to judge it any other way. I don't have to label it. I don't have to name it. All I have to do is decide, do I feel better or do I feel worse? That's it.
If it feels negative, turn around and go the other way with your thinking.
That's it. Very simple. Yeah. Now, this is all fabulous that we're talking about. I'm going to bring it back to our original topic, because by this point, Avinash actually knows the topic pretty well, but somebody like Avinash asking this question might be saying, what on earth does this have to do with financial abundance? May have lost the thread of it, because let's be honest, this thread got kind of long. So I'm just saying. So let's go back to the original thread. We're looking for that clarity all the time. All right. So we've been going through this whole thing. We've been going on lavishly about the value of looking at our emotional responses, recognizing we can choose to change our emotional responses, looking at the idea of negative situations and saying we can look at them in a nice, positive way, which seems absolutely astonishing. But what's that going to do for our financial abundance? Let's tie it all back again. Where does that actually tie in financial abundance?
When you get into that place, Walt, where you're absolutely feeling confident and good and clear and not so afraid anymore, and all those things are sort of simmered down, you are vibrating this really positive, nice vibe on that subject of finances. Let's stick to that. And the universal law of attraction of its own power is just going to take those and start amplifying them. Then money starts coming in the post. You get a check for £8,000 like I got the other day, and you get going to give this money and that money and the other money, and just things come, or somebody says, oh, here's a job for you that you can do and you can earn something on the side, and then things happen. And then the things that happen to me often is all the contracts I have with my phone and all the rest of it, they all just come down every year. They come down. I just kept paying less and less and getting better phones and better this and better connection and better routers and all the rest of it. Just many things are coming down. So it works on both sides. If you're paying less for something, you've got more money in your pocket. So there's many different ways the universal law of attraction can bring in thousands and thousands of different ways that you can bring in positive results in your life. And somebody can say, "Oh, it might be easy for you," but I'm telling you, it wasn't in the beginning. It wasn't easy for you either, Walt.
Not at all. No.
And it's are you prepared to spend a bit of time focusing more on what you want? That's the bottom line. Somebody said to me, "What's your philosophy?" I said, "Focus more on what you want and what you don't want." And that's it.
That's a good one too. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's one other thing that people tend to kind of trip up on that I think we should touch on within the last, we got about 3 minutes left. So we obviously have to keep it quick, which is not something we normally do very well, but we'll try. And that is, we have a tendency to keep score. We have a tendency to say, okay, well, I'm going to try this law of attraction conscious creation thing. So I'm going to try to spend a little more time focusing on my attention on what I like. And since I'm a beginner, I'm probably ending up spending maybe a minute, if I'm lucky, per day to do that. And then I'm going to start keeping score and noticing that the 8,000 pounds that you mentioned hasn't shown up yet. And then I'm going to start getting frustrated. And maybe I'll do it for 1 or 2 more days, but then I'll find that it doesn't work. And so I'm going to give up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's address that for a moment, because that's a fairly common phenomenon of.
Well, all I can say to an individual like that is that's great, that's perfect, because the universal law of attraction is just going to bring you more of what you're thinking. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, at some stage, you're going to decide, all right, I really am going to take this seriously. I'm not going to focus on it, or you're just going to spiral all the way down. So you've really got to understand that the universal law of attraction doesn't care. It really doesn't care. Whatever you're putting out, you're going to get more of. And if you're not interested in focusing on it and working on it, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. If you're putting out thoughts of negativity of what you don't want again and again, all the universal law of attraction is going to say, "Oh, this is what you put out. This is what you're going to get. What you put out. What you're going to get."
So it turns out this actually is work. You actually have to work at this every day. You have to make it a definite effort every single day to say, I am going to stop focusing on that crap I don't want. I'm going to start focusing on the stuff I do want. And I'm going to do it throughout the day, for God's sake.
And I completely disagree with you, because once you start really understanding with it, it's not work anymore. It's not play.
That's true. But
it really is just now a play. It is a play, and it's a beautiful play, and it's a gorgeous play, and it's a divine play. And it's
but the only way you get to that play is by actually doing it.
And play at it, please. Don't work at
it. Okay, fair enough. I'll go with that. Because you're right. I mean, certainly when we're fighting like that, all we're really doing is fighting ourselves. And the relief and release part you were talking about before, that's letting go of that part. So,
which feels better, play or work? Come on, guys.
It is pretty straightforward, I have to admit. So, okay, well, hopefully this has been helpful, and we're going to continue to have more and more episodes to talk about all these different concepts, including episodes with Louis, who is obviously a master at this stuff. I want to make sure that I let people know, particularly those who are watching on the local cable access, but also our newer listeners listening to either the podcast or PRN or YouTube, to remind them, or perhaps let them know for the first time, we have an app, the LOA Today app, that is available. It has many goodies in it that will help you to learn these skills that we're talking about here. And it has all the episodes, 25 most recent episodes right there in the app, so you can play them anytime that you want to. And guess what? It's free. It doesn't cost you a penny. All you have to do is go to the Play Store on an Android phone or to the App Store on an iPhone, look for LOA Today, and there it is. You just install it and go. So take advantage.
You can ask me a question directly.
Well, that's the other beauty of it. Yeah, because there's a special form that you can use to ask anyone a question. That's how Avinash's question got to us. He went to that form. He filled in a question, said, here's a question for Louis, sent it in, and how about that? Here we are talking about it on the show. So it does work. It actually works, Louis. It works. How about that? So please take advantage and do download the app and put it to use. There's a lot of good stuff in there, especially in the goodies section. You can spend a few hours on there and still not get through all of it. It's really, really good stuff.
Well, I've loved your focus on creating that app. Kudos to you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'm sure all of our listeners appreciate it. I appreciate it, and I mean, we appreciate them too. So, thank you guys very much for being a part of us. And with that thought, we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.